Funding Month, presented with Oracle for Startups and American Express, recognizes the stories, lessons learned, and best practices shared by founders and funders around the world.
Okay, all right. So welcome everyone to the Startup Grind. So yeah, I can see some old face, some people are joining, and some people are joining so early. So I appreciate you for joining and waiting as well. And yeah, I see some of my friends as well, like Sok Nam, Ning Ning, Vai Phat, Nirot. Oh my God, there's a lot of people here. So first, I think we can start with the expectation setting. It is a very simple one ហើយមានតែមួយទេអញ្ចឹងសង្ឃឹមថាអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអាចជួយព្រោះថាបើយើងអត់ធ្វើអា expectation ហ្នឹងទេវាអាចប៉ះពាល់ដល់ experience អ្នកដទៃដែលគាត់ join អញ្ចឹងណាព្រោះឥឡូវហ្នឹងមានច្រើនជាង100នាក់ដែល join event យើងឥឡូវហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹង expectation setting ឬក៏ rule នៃ event ហ្នឹងគឺមានតែគឺ simple ទេគឺពេលយើង communicate ចង់និយាយអីណែនាំខ្លួនឯងនិយាយគ្នាឬក៏សួរសំណួរ please use the chat box ប៉ុណ្ណឹងឯងអញ្ចឹងដោយសារតែមនុស្សច្រើនអញ្ចឹងបើយើងបើក mic និយាយឬក៏វាថាយើងកំពុងតែធ្វើ event ខ្ញុំកំពុងសំណេះសំណាលមួយ speaker អញ្ចឹងអ្នកខ្លះគាត់ច្រឡំដៃបើកឬក៏អ្នកខ្លះគាត់បើកនិយាយសួរកាត់អញ្ចឹងវាអាចប៉ះពាល់ដល់អ្នកផ្សេងខ្លាំងមែនតើ Alright អញ្ចឹងបន្ទាប់ទៀតខ្ញុំចង់អរគុណទៅដល់ organizing team and បង Joly as well our speaker today ព្រោះថាបើអត់មានពួកគាត់ទេយើងក៏អាចធ្វើ event ថ្ងៃនេះ happen ដែរហើយខ្ញុំអរគុណអ្នកនរគ្នាដែលបានចូលរួមព្រោះខ្ញុំគិតថាមកហឹកនេះយើង challenge a lot of I think a lot of us I think maybe all of us are stressing out about the situation អញ្ចឹងthank you for making time and joining us and មិនតិចចំពោះខ្លួនឯងកុំឲ្យថាឃើញមុខនិយាយហើយអត់ដឹងថាអ្នកគេដាក់និយាយអញ្ចឹងណាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំឈ្មោះសវ័តខ្ញុំគឺជា co-director នៃ Startup Grind Phnom Penh ហើយខ្ញុំក៏ជា moderator នៃ event ថ្ងៃនេះដែរអញ្ចឹងក្រៅពី Startup Grind គឺខ្ញុំ running one startup ហើយខ្ញុំ run startup ហ្នឹងប្រហែលជា7-2ឆ្នាំហើយអញ្ចឹង in term of experience ហើយនឹង knowledge in term of startup ខ្ញុំនៅមានកម្រិតដែរ so I'm very excited to talk and learn ពីបង Joly today about funding yeah អញ្ចឹងសម្រាប់អ្នកដែលទៅចូលរួម Startup Grind event លើកទី1ខៃឡូចូល event យើងហើយយើងអត់ដឹងថាអីគេ Startup Grind ហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងណាអញ្ចឹង at least ចូលលើកនេះម្ដងលើកក្រោយគេសួរថាចូល Startup Grind event ហើយសួរថា Startup Grind គឺជាអីយើងដឹងអញ្ចឹងខ្លីៗ about Startup Grind គឺ we are global community of startup founders innovators and creator ហើយពួកយើង Startup Grind គឺយើងបាន educate inspired and connect startup តាំងពីឆ្នាំ2010មកហើយ so far ពួកយើងបាន impact 3.5 million startup នៅក្នុង6 chapters នៅក្នុងប្រទេស125ប្រទេស Okay I see someone recommending me speaking English so I think I can and បើមានអាគេដែលគាត់មានបញ្ហាក្នុងការស្ដាប់អង់គ្លេសអាចប្រាប់ខ្ញុំបានដែរខ្ញុំអាចនិយាយទៅវិញទៅមកបានហើយtwo main things that we will cover in today Fireside Chat are ទី1គឺ funding landscape in Cambodia to put it simple គឺតើប្រភេទនៃ investor ឬក៏ type of investor នៅក្នុងប្រទេសយើងមានប្រមាណប្រភេទ and ទី2ហ្នឹងគឺ the number 2 is tips on how you can prepare your startup for investments yeah ឧទាហរណ៍ថាដូចអ្នកខ្លះនៅក្នុងcall នេះគាត់បានចាប់ផ្ដើម startup របស់គាត់អស់រយៈពេលថា3ខែចុះSo you might struggling you might don't know what to move on so if you want funding what should you prepare or what detail you should working on all right and for agenda of the day right now we are in opening and after this we will go to Fireside Chat for 30 minutes and after the 30 minutes we will go to Q&A for 15 minutes and last but not least we will have 5 minutes for closing meaning we're gonna take a photo together and do some checkout. All right, so I think without further delays, let's welcome our speakers. Bong Joly. Woo, Bong.
Hi everyone.
Yes, hello Bong.
We're supposed to speak English, huh?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. So I think the floor is yours.
Thank you too, and happy
Yes.
to see a lot of people here right now on the call. And so today we're going to talk about how to prepare your startup for investment funding. And I'm very excited to be here. Maybe I should do an introduction of myself a little bit if
Yeah, you can tell a little bit about yourself, please. And also, if possible, you can cover a little bit like before you started your career in as an investment specialist. We would like to know about that.
Oh, thanks. Okay. I started studying finance when I was in bachelor school. So it was, working in finance and investment is not something that is essentially new for me. I had some background in it. And before I started working in finance, I got scholarship, Fulbright scholarship. I went to the States to study law and diplomacy, primarily in the business and commerce sector. Spent some time at Harvard Law for a negotiation workshop or negotiation class, and also had a chance to involve in an accelerator program based in Boston. Worked in Washington, D.C. for a while in development consulting and came back. Saw the opportunities in investment of, I think 2016, 2017 was when the buzzword of startups, investments, and all these buzzwords are starting booming. So it's really interesting to be able to see Cambodia go through a very fast pace of startup community. So I joined Mekong Strategic Partners, worked as an investment specialist for almost 3 years. And now I transitioned to the World Bank, also in finance and investment. So currently working as a specialist in financial management and investment. But, it's the whole thing about, understanding about the business and numbers that started, my interest in investment and finance in general. But at the same time, it was a good opportunity to involve in investment community, since Cambodia is one of the countries in Southeast Asia that investment in startups are booming. And it's really interesting to see that many startups are being created right now.
Okay, well, not good. Actually, a little bit of the history. I meet Bong Jolyda for the first time at an interview. Actually, back then I think it was 2 years ago when I applied for one investment program with her teammate as well. So yeah, I think for the past 2 years I didn't get in touch with her at all. So it's good to see you today. Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably you meant Smart Scale, which is an accelerated program based in Cambodia as well. Yeah,
True.
organized by Development Innovations and Seed Stars and MSP. So.
All right. Okay, well, so you got something to share with us, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think since I think for most people, investment is something new. Maybe some of the participants have had experience creating their own startup, starting with their idea, creating some product or service, but investment may be something that they want to figure out more. So I prepared a few slides only, just to give it a bit of introduction, and then I'm gonna do it shortly. So very briefly, so we can give a lot of time for the chat and for the questions. So let me share my screen if that's okay. And let me know if you can see it.
I see it now.
Okay. Is it in full screen for everyone?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So today we're going to talk about how to prepare for investment funding. But in order to know how to prepare for investment funding, you need to know the landscape first. What is happening in Cambodia? Who are the investors? What is the investment landscape look like? In simple terms, what types of investors are there in the market? what types of startups are there in the market and which one you fit in the most, and what are the criteria that the investors look for. And number 4, how do you prepare for a possible funding? So let us start with the economy a little bit. I'm not going on this through this slide too long. All I want to say is that Cambodia is in a very interesting period in which we have high internet penetration and low banked population. High internet penetration meaning a lot of people have access to the internet. A lot of people have mobile phones. A lot of people know what Facebook is, a lot of people access social media. Even those in the province, some of us have 2 mobile phones, for example, using different networks. And when we talk about population, when we say low banked, we mean people in Cambodia have low percentage of having access to a bank account. So we know that most people in Phnom Penh has a bank account. Of course, most of you probably has an ABA or a CLIDA or a Canada bank account. But we talk about the whole population, not a lot of people. Actually, 78% is still unbanked. So if you have a bank account, you're among the 22% of the population. And the reason why I want to raise this, because I want to show you guys that there's a lot of opportunity in here that is untapped. If you are being creative, when you see all these statistics and data, you would think, okay, what kind of startups, what kind of opportunity should I grab? What kind of startup should I be doing in order to fill in the market gap, in order to be different? Okay, and when we talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we talk about many different things. You as a startup, you are an individual, companies, right? But then you are also influenced by universities, training providers who may or may not teach you entrepreneurship or teach you some of the skills that would be really useful for you to start a business. It may, your ability to do business or to start a startup may also be influenced by your government. What are the things that they allow? What are the things that are still in gray area? For example, cryptocurrency is still something that the government does not, have a lot of laws and regulations to cover, because this is something novel, something new. And more than that, you are also influenced by support programs, capacity builders, just like startup grinds, just like other support programs that are provided to help you start your startups in a very effective way. Also, corporates and industries are also a part of that. Individual investors like myself, we also want to look for resourcing startups, financially funding the startup and helping startups grow. So my main message in here is that you are not alone in this system. You are influenced by every part of every part of the system, including government, including yourself, including the companies and everything. So whatever you do, try to consider all these different factors. And this is a really interesting slide because, but okay, so you can find this in the report that I co-wrote for Mekong Strategic Partners and Raintree. You can find it online. Just type Startup Kingdom 2018 and you have access to the file. But in here, I want to show you that, if you're new, if you don't know what investors, who are the investors are there in Cambodia, this is information for you. So we have different kinds of investors in different stages. We have, if you're looking for a small grants like $10,000, $200,000, you may be talking to Small World. You may be talking to Devanco, Uberis Capital, CIC, right? And if you talk about like a bigger one, which is a venture capital, which is what I'm in, what I'm working, what I used to work for, is, you know, we talk about the smart fund, smart Axiata Digital Innovation Fund. Talk about Octane, maybe you've heard of it. Mr. To, 500 startups, or in Cambodia, you call it Anchor 500, in Zero Impact Fund. And bigger funds have, you know, bigger ticket size. When I say ticket size, I mean the amount of money that you are able to get. So for VC, you got from like 50,000 to $2 million maximum, right? But for private equity is a bigger fund, which is where I'm working on now. So for example, IFC is a part of World Bank, which provides bigger size funding or investment to bigger projects, to bigger companies. And then the last stage, you got IPO. I know many of you guys dream of, you know, succeeding in your startup and being able to push your startup into a public, you know, public eyes through IPO. But I think this is something really challenging. And however, we have CSX to help the companies that are ready to do that in here. If you have questions, feel free to do that later. And so these are different types of startups. Fintech, we've got digital media, e-commerce. These are the examples that you can look at. And I think something really interesting on here is that you may notice is that we have a lot of fintech companies, more than 50 fintech companies. And you may ask, okay, why? Is it because we have low banked population and everybody is thinking of the same thing? Maybe, but maybe not. People are looking into fintech is because it is a type of startup that that kind of, you know, connect with the banks, that connects with the payment. It's something that we do every day. Every day you go shopping, you need something, you know, you don't want to do cash anymore. Right now, you're comfortable with digital payment. So all of these startups that are created, they want to provide you simplest thing, which is digital payment, which is digital banking, access to finance without having you to go to a bank branch. But I believe that there's a lot of competition in fintech, although I think in the future, there will be only several leading startups in fintech that are able to stay because it's too much competition. And at the end of the day, only very few are able to operate in certain fields. But of course, we have other disruptor models, which is very different from other types. But I'm not going through this fast, but if you have questions, I can always go back to the slide. So here comes an interesting part. A lot of people have asked me these questions, like, what can I do to prepare myself for an investment? I think, first of all, before we even go through number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you need to ask yourself a few questions. Number 1, are you ready? Are you ready to get a startup? Are you ready to get funding? Which means that maybe you're too, I'm sorry if I offend you, but maybe your startup is too small, which means you're not big enough yet for you to get outside funding. Because remember, if you get outside funding, if it's in equity, you will have to relinquish your shares, for example, 20%, and you only have 80%. You know, and when your startup grows bigger, then you're going to have less and less. And that's the reason why many startups decide to still hold on to their baby and let it grow to a bigger size for them to feel that, okay, I'm ready. My startup is big. It is valued at a higher valuation, and I'm going to take in the startups. I'm sorry, I'm going to take in the money. I'm going to take in the investment. It may affect your ownership less than when you do it now, when your startup is still small. But if you think that you're ready, the second question to ask is, who would be your potential investors? And when you think about who would be your potential investor, you think about a lot of things like what can they provide you? Is it network? Is it strategies? Right? Is it knowledge? Right? What can the investors provide you in addition to the money so that you can grow your startup? And then the next question is, okay, you asked about the investors, right? But what can you provide to the investors so that they are interested in you? That's a really good question to ask yourself, because sometimes, you may think you have a great idea, but you may be talking to the wrong investors. So it's good to know the market. So these are the 6 kind of criteria. They look at the team. Multiple co-founders have a higher rate of success than just single co-founder. They are looking for founders that are full-time. They don't want to look, into a business that, you can say, you could talk to investors. This is my sidekick. This is like my side hustle, my side project. I love it so much. Why, if you love it so much, why don't you quit your job and just, do it? So we want a founder that is really committed, but also coachable. When I say coachable, we want investors want to help startups grow. So if the team are really strict on what they think and what they think is always right, then we might think that, okay, maybe personality is an issue here, because a good team is a team that can take in suggestions and advice from others. We look at business model. Are you sustainable? Can your product earn money in a long run? If your product can earn money in a very short time, and then later on you'll be like, you're not able to do that, then it's not sustainable. We look at whether your product or whether your service is fit into the market. If we talk about Cambodia, does Cambodia need that? And traction. Traction is really important. We are not comfortable investing in ideas. We want to invest in like real stuff that we can see and feel, right? If you say, you have a great idea on something, but we want to ask, okay, if you had a great idea, have you validated it? If you have validated it, great. What's your revenue? What's your customers like? What's your growth prospects, right? And then next, we look at market opportunity. We look at how big, how small the market size is. We'll look at valuation. When we talk about valuation, how do you value yourself? What do you think your startup is priced at? If you're too expensive, we're like, we like you, but you're just too expensive, right? And the last one is, we also, when we consider looking into startups, we consider, what is the value add here? If I invest in you, does it benefit my other startups? Does it benefit my network? Does it benefit my strategies? A lot of things to do here. But overall, this is my last slide. My tips. First one, prepare to be all in, which means, what I mean is, it's a really time-consuming, exhausting process for you to keep, sustain your conversation with the investors, for you to always go back and forth with the investors. If they request for certain documents, you need to prepare for them. So it's not just a one-day thing. It's a long process. Sometimes it can take months for you to be able to get the funding from the investors. Second is, whatever you do, don't burn bridge. Never ever burn bridge. I've had a lot of, I think I've learned from experience, and also I've seen a lot of startups, or maybe some investors do that, when there's issues with relationship, right? Maybe there's certain things that they don't agree with. They tend to burn bridge at the end and be like, okay, let us not talk again to each other. And when we meet during at events, we don't talk to each other. You're just going to argue, and then, so whatever, you don't burn bridge, because in the future, who knows if the person that you argue with today is going to be someone you want to ask for money, so it's really important. Next is do homework. VC likes it when you do your homework, when you know who you're talking to, when you are prepared to say verbally, to prepare documents as to what is right for us, what is good for us. And do homework as in not just about us, but about yourself. I've had cases where CEO would talk to me and I would ask them questions about their finances or their marketing strategy, and they'd be like, I don't know. I don't know about that. My finance person knows that, or my marketing manager knows that. I'm not sure about that. That would really signify not a good team, not a incapable team, because you want a CEO to know it all. You don't have to have like all the exact numbers, but you have to have at least a good idea of what's going on in your company. Another one is do self-assessment. Always assess yourself among competitors, your performance, right? Timing of the fundraising, and then also determine the amount to be raised. This is really important. Like, how do you value yourself? Do you think that your startup is worth, say, $50,000, 1 mil, 5 mil? So prepare for that. And the last one and really important thing is practice your pitching. I'm pretty sure that some of you have heard of and have probably pitched before, but we had a lot of experience with startups in which they tend to be too technical in their pitching. We don't want it like that. We want a pitch that is easy to understand, even for average people. That's when we know that you're a good communicator to your customers. So I hope you're ready, but I want to finish this with one last meme, which you may find interesting. So sometimes we would say this to you. We're like, okay, we love your idea. It's great. It's really interesting. But let's meet again in 3 to 6 months. Have you had that experience before? Maybe, maybe not. So founder, in this meeting, you're like, why did you do this to me? Well, from VC or from venture capital or from investors' perspective, when we say that, we usually mean that we like your idea, but we want you to grow more. That's what we think. So we're like, okay, this idea or this company is really promising, but right now it's a bit too early. We want more validation. And that's why we said that. And a lot of founders take it personally and be like, investors, you're so mean. You don't care about us, but no, it's not like that. All right, I'm just joking a little bit, but I'm done talking and I'm happy to, answer your questions.
Okay, thank you both. That was a very insightful presentation. I got something out of it as well, and it's reflective as well. Some of the part that you mentioned is kind of relatable. So I got some point from you, and it got me very curious, especially at the part that you say the startup demands too much, or it's too expensive for the investor. So sometimes startup they sometimes are new to the market or new to what they do, so it can be confusing for them to calculate the right amount. Sometimes it can be too high, sometimes can be too low. So from your suggestion, how do you suggest them to calculate the amounts to be just right?
Thank you. It's very tricky, to calculate the amount, because it's all based on your expectation of how the startups are going to grow into. And when I say startups may be too expensive, of course, I mean, no matter who you are, if you are looking to get investment, of course you would price yourself a little more expensive than you would actually have to admit, right? It's really normal. It's fine. But I think, there are a few ways for you to evaluate yourself. First is, this is a bit technical here. This is what we do as well at MSP or at other investment companies, even in the States. What you can do is first you compare yourself to other startups similar to you. You compare their revenue, you compare their customer traction, you compare with them and see how well do they do. And second thing, if they are ever invested into, then you need to look at what amount did they get, for what percentage, and make that comparison. Discount it a little bit, maybe if you're smaller or if you're in a smaller market, then you probably have some ideas of how you want to compare, how do you want to price yourself. And there are also other ways for you to do that as well. I think, you can do, everybody can Google and find those ways. One thing is you look at your past revenue. You look at your past revenue and you look at your future revenue. When you look at your past revenue, you look at the total, say, trailing 12-month revenue, like the past 12 months, how much do you get, say, $10,000, $20,000. And then you look at the multiples in terms of when you go to the market data and you look at, say, if you're in delivery company, you look at delivery company data in the in Google, right? You look at some price to sales, price to earning ratio. You look at those multiples that are used to evaluate those startups that are public in the world. And then you benchmark it to yourself. You benchmark the multiple to yourself, and then you calculate with the revenue, the last 12-month revenue, and then you can find it. And there's also net present values. It's basically a very technical thing. But if you're a startup and you want to know how at least in certain range, say from a smallest valuation size to the larger one, at least I think you should be able to do comparable, which I said earlier, making comparison of your company to other companies that are in the same sector as you, and discount that if you're smaller, or maybe promoted that number a little bit if you're bigger.
All right, I see. Okay, well, another question related to what you share as well. Sometimes people think that it's good to start finding or raising fund at the early stage, but what you mentioned earlier is like if you raise fund at the early stage, it's like selling a big part of yourself or part of your business. So in your opinion or from your experience, what is the ideal stage of startup should be in before they start raising fund or focus on raising fund?
You mean at what stage?
Like ideation stage, and then start making some revenue.
I see.
Customer.
Okay. Well, okay. First of all, start with idea stage. Idea stage means that you have only idea.
Yes.
And maybe some people to talk to at night after you work or during the day, talking about your idea, like, okay, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna hire drivers, right? We're gonna order this product. We're gonna produce this thing, right? But there's nothing really life changing. There's nothing really like turning point for you to really start it, to really start the mechanics working yet. It's still an idea, which means a conception. There's not much traction. What I mean is, if it's an idea stage, you don't have customer yet, you don't have a partner yet, you have not had tractions yet, you have not gained income or revenue yet. This is idea stage. Usually, I'm sorry, it's the ugly truth. Investors are not comfortable investing in idea. Mostly, if you have ideas, you would find yourself in hackathon. you would find yourself getting grants from development agencies, or you would find yourself getting grants from incubators, accelerator programs, right? Because this is where you can grow and develop your concept into a small baby, into something that you kind of start working out with, validating. And then, so again, most investors may not be interested in idea stage, but then when you move on to early stage, which means you have some customer, you have some revenue, you have some partners, that would be when investments may be available for you. But it also depends on what is the future look like for you. If we look at your performance, we see, okay, if there are two companies that have the same performance right now, but one, we have more confidence that it would grow bigger, investors would probably choose to invest in that one instead of the other one. I say that because we don't usually only look at what you've done in the past. We look at how promising you are for your future. Do you have, let me go back to this, right? Do you have the right team to grow the business? Does your business model allow you to gain much more than what you're gaining now? Will your traction continue to rise? Will the market adopt your service or product better, right? What future can we, do we feel confident about for your startup? That's growth stage. So that would be when seed funding, that would be when Smart Axiata Digital Innovation Fund comes in, or the venture capitalist comes in. And then when your company grows into growth stage, say next, right, the growth stage, that means you have you have a good amount of market share in the market, maybe 2%, 3%, or maybe 5 or 10%, right? That would be when private equity investors, bigger funds comes in. But let me tell you, when those guys come in, they also want a larger ownership in the company. That's just how they are. And that also would be when you can, get investment as well. But overall, last thing, if you're not ready to get investment, even when you're in early stage, you may be able to wait until growth stage. That's okay. And you can also, we use the term bootstrap, right? You can bootstrap your startup, which means that you can use your own money to fund your startup until it grows to a early stage or early growth stage for you to be able to look for investment. That would be when you have better negotiation with the investors.
All right. So next question, this one has mentioned even before the events, one request from Mr. Nasi. He asked, shall loan be recommended as funding for startup? And follow-up question to that, he asked, can you compare between loan and other sources of funding?
Thank you. It's a good question. A really good question. Well, loan is also a funding for startups. I've seen some startups deciding to take loans, bank loans. But if you want to take loans, you should try to seek loans that have interest rate that are friendly for startups, which mean lower interest rate, less restrictions, more friendly. So loan is also considered a type of funding for startups. And loan is different from other types of funding because, as you know, I think many of you already know, if you take loan, you have to pay interest rate, right? It's a cons, right? But there's a pro in that. If you don't want anyone to involve in your decision making, then the loan would be good, right? Although you have to pay interest rate, but the bank or somebody who gives you a loan wouldn't come into your board meeting every time and you know, and ask you to do something that you don't like. And when we talk about equity funding, we talk about, you know, it's you giving somebody an ownership, some ownership of your company. So that generally means that they have a say in your decision-making process, that they are able to sit in your board meetings, and that they are, you know, a part of your life, a part of your startup from now on. So that's the major difference. But that really depends on how you view it. You know, if you think that, you know, equity investors, having someone on your board would make your startup better, would help you better, then it may be good for you. You know, and you know, sometimes, you know, I think some of the startups may not feel comfortable getting a loan, because who knows when you're going to pay back, because you're not sure about your future. So it may be safer for you to have someone on board and be with you and go to the future with you, try to grow the startup with you, rather than having someone calling you every month and asking you for a payment. So there are always pros and cons. But if there's more question about other types of other different types of equity funding, I can do that if there's question.
All right. Okay, then I think our time is getting to the another part already, and there's a lot of questions that's been asked. So can we move on to the Q&A part? And this part will be handled by the facilitator, Kamai. So Kamai, can you take on the floor? Hello, Kamai.
Hello, Wong. And hello, everyone, and hello, Wong Jolyda. My name is Kim. Yes, it was such a fruitful and insightful talk of you. Thank you so much. As for now, I will be the facilitator for the Q&A session. And the first question to ask is from Sotirat. He asked that, what is the matter of trust between startup and investor? Can you share some assessment tips about the trust?
Thank you for the question. Well, I probably can answer it in two ways. And if I do not answer that question well, feel free to write your text here again and clarify. Well, it's, you know, when we talk about trust, we talk about, first of all, personality, what we see in the startup founders, in a team, right? And we usually are able to kind of pinpoint to the certain type of personality when we have a conversation with startups, either on Zoom call or either face-to-face, usually. You know, if startups are, you know, if we have trust issue with startups, it usually means that they are not comfortable in sharing us with some information, maybe because they don't trust us as investor, or when we ask them questions, you know, to help us with our decision-making process, they don't have, you know, they are not helpful. They try to, you know, you use your own assessment in evaluating someone's personality through your communication. But the second thing and more important is sometimes we would ask for documents, right? If you say that your business is registered, if you say that your business has financial statements, income statements, revenue, if you say that, okay, this month you earned $5,000 more than last month, or like if you say that the whole year you earn this much, or you're able to get this much customers, we want proof. Right, and sometimes we need those documents for us to verify that, okay, what you've said is true, what you've said is, you know, is believable. And there are times when founders are not able to produce such data for us, maybe because since they're a startup, they don't have a lot of you know, they don't have a lot of recording strategies, or maybe they don't want to tell us, or maybe they actually don't have that. So it's not just judging based on documents. It's our using our ability as a human being to judge someone's, if they're trustful as well. And one more thing is, I've had a lot of experience when usually startup founders would ask for an NDA. For those of you that don't know, NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, which means that, if you sign that, you agree to not talk about or to not spill, any confidential information of that startup to another, or of that investor to another. A lot of startups do that, which is okay. But as an investors, we don't like to sign NDA too much, because it take a lot of time. And a lot of startups are like, we don't trust you, because what if you take our ideas away and use it for other stuff instead? But usually that's not the case. If we do that, our name in the investment industry would be forever ruined, and we won't be trusted as an investor anymore. So I think there's a little bit of trust aspect from both sides.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wong. For that, the next question from Chancha, he asked that, just in case a startup got the investment from VC, but then they have not reached out their goals that they committed to them, to the VC. So is it possible for the startup to ask for more investment from the same VC, and why, and why not?
Thank you. Very good question. It depends. It really depends, because we've, as a VC, when we invest in a startup, we usually divide into 2 steps or 2 tranches. If we agree to invest in you for, say, $20,000, we would first give you only $10,000 and say, you take this $10,000, achieve this certain KPIs, and then come back to us for the rest, right? We usually do that because this is kind of agreement for both of us to say, we have some commitment into you. You use that money, show yourself that you're able to do that. And then after that, we're going to give you money to do more if you're able to reach a certain stage. And there's been time when startups are not able to reach that stage. Maybe because the market is not ready, or maybe they are not doing a good job, or maybe, there are many other reasons. But usually, I think there are a lot of things to consider here from an investor's point of view. If the team does not have the capability to carry on with the startup, highly likely we don't feel confident in investing more. We consider that an asset that is bound to shake, but if the startups are great, if the team, have been working so hard, but the market is not there, and the team has a good plan for the future of how they are going to rectify the situation, then the investors may be able to, provide more funding just to give it more try.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, it's from Ann. The question is that, as we know that during this COVID situation, is it still feasible to start a new business? And what type of businesses that investor interested into investing in this situation?
Oh, thank you. I mean, for most of the business is really challenging during this time. But from experience managing startups, and from, I think all of us can see that during this time, those startups that are in essential business, when I say essential, I mean the kind of services that everybody needs, no matter what happens in the world. from food delivery to medicine to, providing the essential basic needs. That would be something that is going to survive. Although I have to caution that with the current fast evolvement of COVID, there is no guarantee that whatever you want to start right now, although it's an essential business, is easy. So again, if you really want to start a business during this difficult time, I'm not stopping you, but you have to take into consideration the evolvement of the rapid change of COVID. Even delivery companies have issues during the first week of the lockdown because everything is still unsure, even though they are an essential business. And we all know that delivery business is essential and everybody needs their stuff delivered to their home. But the current change, that doesn't mean that those businesses are immune to change. And the second question is, what kind of business what kind of business do investors want to invest in or are interested in? That's a broad question because it's very different from the types of investors, right? If you speak to maybe Mr. Rati from Small World, maybe he's looking to invest in like very interesting tech startups, right? Small tech startups that are unique, niche in a way. If you talk to Smart Axiata Digital Innovation Fund, they may be interested in service technology company, right? Companies that provide like a certain kind of platform, like Nyam24 as a food platform, Junior as a logistics platform, Agribody as a farmer's loan platform. If you talk to other investors like IFC, maybe you've heard of IFC, International Finance Corporation under the World Bank Group, they may be interested in companies that are providing social impact in addition to profit. If you talk to Uberis Capital, they are looking for more social and environmental positive change, so it's very different from when we look at different types of investors.
Okay, thank you so much. So as we're on the topic of new business, what about, do you have any tips for someone who is new to pitching?
Yeah. A good question. Just two things. Number one is be yourself. Second is be simple. Be yourself, which means that, have confidence in yourself. You can be who you are and you can pitch well. You don't have to change your personality to fit in whatever those kind of Silicon Valley based, like California based kind of like perfect pitch. It doesn't have to be like that. What we want to see is your confidence in your startup, your belief, your passion in what you do. And the second thing is be simple, which means that you don't have to be too technical in what you say. Throw in jargons is not a good thing. We want to, investors may be able to understand your startup, but not all the time, because we're not the one who is involved in the startup as you. So your ability to convey the message in a very simple way, just as when you're trying to convince your customers, is a great way for you to pitch. But another thing, I'm not sure if you asked this, but the content, start with the simple content. You can look online, right? They are like problem statement, solution statement, a revenue model, opportunity, competition, your plan for the future, all these, but put it in a very simple way. So it is, we want to be interested in your business, but make yourself really interested, show yourself that you're passionate about it, confident about it, and be simple.
Thank you. So for our last question of today, as startup faced with many failures and faced with some mental breakdown, based on your experience, how do you deal with the mental breakdown and like your health, your inner health? And because based on the report, like 49% of the startup founders have mental issues. So what would you recommend people to set their mind to?
I'm not sure if I'm qualified to give recommendation in this case. But of course, I mean, there are startups that go through a very difficult phase in life because there are so many challenges and issues that they have to deal with creating something new. It may be financial issue, it may be idea issue, it may be teamwork issue. There are many things. I can only say from personally, not a professional experience for this one. Always have a plan. Always have a plan. Say, if this happens, what you're gonna do next? Always have plan B and C and D. And what we see with some of our startups during COVID time is that, of course, they have gone through a lot of stress, but most of them are running around and working so hard, harder than normal, because they have plans. They have plans. They try to reach out and network, and at the same time also keeping themselves healthy. I think just like every other individuals who have gone through mental health, I think keeping yourself healthy is probably one of the most important thing, in addition to always reaching out, having good network, talking to people, just keep yourself relevant, keep yourself updated. Always have a plan in your head, because things change really fast.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. And as we are running out of time now, and because of the time limitation, sorry, and we apologize that we couldn't ask all your questions. And if you have any more ideas to share, we can go to discuss in our Telegram group. Thank you so much, Jolyda. Thank you, and we will love to have a photo shoot. So please open your camera.
So just one comment before this. If I would be happy to join the Telegram group and answer some of the questions that I'm not able to do that today. I see that there are a lot of questions that we haven't touched on, so I'm happy to help and do that after this.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
So how are we going to take 150 people photo?
I think from page to page.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ồ, đặc biệt bà chân tới mình đang tham mình chọn.
So we start count from 1 to 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Is the picture okay?
1, 2, 3. I mean, do you want to like a freestyle or something? Okay.
Can.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so we take one more.
Yeah.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much everyone for making your times. I know it's not late yet, and as well the 1 hour's event is feel kind of short actually. It went by very quick, and yeah, I hope to spend more time with you guys, especially the talk with Bong Joly. And yeah, Akun Bong so much for making your time to join us today, and hopefully we can do more events together, or maybe having some touch point with everyone, because Startup Grind actually hosting in-person events once per month usually. So there's a lot, actually there should be a lot of chance for us to see each other, meet each other, exchange idea. But yeah, because of the challenge, we cannot make it happen. But somehow at least we can do this kind of activity or event, right? We can see each other face. I can see some of you are not from Cambodia, so welcome to Cambodia, and thank you so much for joining. I think it's different times. Yeah, you're still making effort to join, so thank you so much. So yeah, I think that's it for this event. Sneak peek a little bit about next events. We might do another online event just like this in 20s next month, with one of the speaker that is specialized in e-commerce, and he is, you know, like kind of popular in social media. So please stay tuned to our page, and the Telegram group, I think there are like 60 to 70 people if I'm not wrong, but in here there are more than 100 people. So for anyone who have not joined Telegram group yet, please do so, and we're gonna share and we're gonna answer your question. Bong Joly will help in answering your question more if you didn't if your question didn't get answered. So yeah, Akun everyone, thank you and see you later. Bye bye.
Thank you, Bong. Thank you.
Thank you, Bong.
Thank you.
Bye. Nice to see all of you.
Bye.